Sami Zayn lost to Roman Reigns. We knew that it was kind of inevitable, so why does it feel so incomplete? Is the story between Sami Zayn and Roman Reigns really over? If the story really is over, what is Sami Zayn doing at WrestleMania? And is there anything that they could have done differently? Coming off of one of the most memorably hyped WWE pay-per-views in any sort of recent timeline, where do we stand on how we leave the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, and completely specifically the main event, Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns, after months and months of build in an era when we all ask for long-term storytelling, we've gotten it. And what we saw at Elimination Chamber was a match that had been built to for, 10 months, maybe more, if you want to factor in everything that the Bloodline has been through. If you want to factor in what we saw from Jey Uso in that match as well, and the way Jey Uso fit into the Sami Zayn Roman Reigns storyline, it's really a storyline more than 2 years in the making that we've been waiting. This is the culmination of that. All the Roman Lesnar matches, Roman Cena, what started with the Roman and Jey matches, everything, the triple threat where Roman was stacking legends on top of each other, everything has brought us to Elimination Chamber. But more specifically, we started going on a ride. We started going on a ride, maybe not quite 10 months ago, but let's say May-ish of last year, when Sami Zayn, coming off of WrestleMania and his match with Johnny Knoxville, coming off of his time, if we even remember, as a conspiracy victim in the WWE, as a guy who hosted a podcast interview segment, started associating himself first loosely and then much more tightly with the Bloodline. And at what was first sort of the goofy buddy, the Wilson to the Taylor family, if you will, became a full-fledged member of that family. What started as Sami Zayn annoyingly hanging out with the Bloodline, seemingly out of complete self-interest and survival in the WWE locker room, came a much more human portrayal of a character that we can all relate to. It became the story of this superstar who was looking for his place, who was looking for acceptance, who, while he didn't fit the typical mold of anybody associated with the Bloodline, admired what Roman Reigns had accomplished, admired what the people who were at the top of the industry were doing. The way one might look at the popular kid in high school, and while you don't really fit in with that kid and you don't really fit in with that kid's friends, you admire what that kid is capable of. You admire what that kid has pulled off. You have an admiration that you want to show, and in some ways you want to learn from that kid. And that's who Sami Zayn became. Sami Zayn became somebody who, while maybe at first was potentially acting in self-interest, started buying what the Bloodline was selling, started becoming this person that said, you are that guy. I am acknowledging you. You are right in what you say. You are the head of the table. You are putting food on our plates. And I would like to be of service to you. I think I can be of service to you. And I'd like to be that person. And it became very clear that by the end of the summer, beginning of the fall, Sami was there to be of service to the Anoa'i family. And he had to prove that time and time again. And we've all been in those scenarios, or maybe you're lucky enough that you haven't been. But a lot of us have been. And it's a really difficult position to be in, but we watched Sami go through it. And as wrestling fans, and as fans of the stories that are told in the world of professional wrestling, on some level, we had to know where this was going. We watched Sami finally earn the acceptance of the Bloodline at Survivor Series. And there was something, even though, and this is very unique in professional wrestling, that even though this guy turned on his best friend and sided with the villains, Sami Zayn turned on Kevin Owens, somebody that we as wrestling fans know is basically a brother to him, especially in this industry. He turned on him, yet in doing that, became accepted by the Bloodline, and more specifically by Jey Uso, who he had to keep proving himself to. And there was something that we found heroic about that. That even in doing an act that on paper was so ugly, because of the intention that it was coming from, and because of the person who was doing it, and the way that in most of our hearts we related to that person, we felt like we had won. We felt like there was a victory, that even when the good guys lost, that guy who was us was accepted by the popular kids. That guy who just kept trying finally was allowed into the club. And there was that beautiful honeymoon period through December. And there was talk of the honorary Oos being upgraded to just an Oos, to a full-time Oos. And it never happened, but it wasn't that it didn't happen, right? Until it didn't happen. And that loyalty started to be questioned again after everything that Sami had done to prove himself, that acceptance was given to him, specifically by Jey Uso. But then it was the head of the table who started to take it away. And that is on some other level manipulative stuff. We let you in, but now we're dangling you over the possibility of throwing you out. A person can't function like that. And they go through the trial of Sami Zayn, and he's found guilty until Jey comes to his defense. We get to the Royal Rumble. And if we thought that the Survivor Series ending was scorching hot, the Royal Rumble was liquid magma. Sami Zayn finally has had enough. Finally can't stand the manipulation anymore. Finally gets to a place where he's given this man everything, and this man continues to take from him. And he is no longer willing to give. And Sami Zayn will not unnecessarily allow his friend to be laid out by Roman Reigns, and instead takes the chair and he lays out Roman Reigns. And that was only about 3 weeks ago, and it leads us to this match at the Elimination Chamber. The match that was inevitable. The match that we were waiting for as this storyline that in its inception was never intended to be the central focus of WWE. I don't believe that when Sami Zayn became associated with the Bloodline, that the intention was, oh, this will become the hottest angle in wrestling. Oh, this is what we will headline future shows with. This is what will take us out of the Survivor Series, bring us into the Royal Rumble. This is going to lead us all to WrestleMania. And we'll even start to draw into question our plans for WrestleMania. I don't think that was ever the thought. But that's where it got to. And once it got to there, we had to know that this was inevitable. And going into the Elimination Chamber, I think we knew what was inevitable. I don't think most people truly thought that Sami Zayn was going to become the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. Yet, coming off of the Elimination Chamber, there is this feeling like we were hit with the inevitable. And I say it's the inevitable because, I mean, just listen to this, okay? This is a clip from myself on this podcast in December of last year. So, 2-3 months ago, whatever it was, December of last year, this is from me. I think that 2023 will start with Roman turning on Sami. Those seeds are already clearly being planted. Now is not the time to completely tear it up, but I don't think there's going to be Roman Reigns on SmackDown next week. On the 30th, you've got the tag team match, so the question about whether or not he's a full-time Moose isn't going to be answered, and the rest of it will take us to the Royal Rumble. We're getting Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns, I believe, at Elimination Chamber. Either at the Royal Rumble, right after the Royal Rumble, surrounding the Royal Rumble, you'll get the Bloodline turning on Sami. And it'll be because Sami does something honorable. It'll make Sami a babyface. The Elimination Chamber pay-per-view is in Montreal. Sami Zayn is not beating Roman Reigns. He's not going to beat him at WrestleMania. He's not going to beat him at all. So, if you're going to do the match, do it in Montreal, in Sami Zayn's hometown. You will get the monstrous ovation. That's the reaction. That's the Sami Zayn pop that you won't get anywhere else. The entrance to the Roman Reigns match in Montreal. Listening back to that, it's literally exactly what happened. So then why is that feeling of satisfaction not there coming off of the Elimination Chamber? The Elimination Chamber main event between Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn was magical. The Elimination Chamber match between Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn was a forever match. It was a forever moment. This is one of Sami Zayn's road to this match. And the reaction that he got on SmackDown the Friday before the Elimination Chamber, and the reaction that he got from Montreal walking to the ring at the Elimination Chamber, announced second in a Roman Reigns match. You know who gets announced second in a Roman Reigns match? Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar if he has a tractor. If Brock Lesnar has a tractor, he will be introduced second. But other than that, Roman comes out last. Because Roman is the draw. Except at the Elimination Chamber, Roman didn't come out last. Roman came out first. Sami Zayn, after years and years and years of putting everything into professional wrestling, after taking a gimmick that people saw on the Independents, in Ring of Honor, in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, that fans loved, and matches that fans loved. But some of the great minds in wrestling thought was too ridiculous, thought was too goofy, thought was just something that was never going to get over with WWE or an organization that big. He got past all that. He went to NXT. He was the first of that sort of new independent class to go through NXT, right? Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, those guys had come in but had gone through the FCW system and were guys that sort of looked like they might work in WWE. Sami Zayn was one of the very early non-WWE types to get signed to a developmental deal and have the world saying, what is that all about? And he spent his time in NXT as the underdog from the underground. He finally won the NXT championship. Had a huge match with John Cena, threw out his shoulder, had to come back. And again, work his way up. At no point in the WWE was he ever pegged to main event shows. Was he ever pegged to be the guy? Except at the Elimination Chamber, Sami Zayn was the guy. The Friday before the Elimination Chamber, Sami Zayn was the guy. And I think the reason that even though we know we saw a story just about perfectly executed, and even though we knew what the result would be, I think the fact that the road here defied expectations on such a grand scale has left people going, oh, I thought I might be wrong. The fact that in 2023, the biggest thing at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view was not a Royal Rumble match, was not a championship match, was not a match at all. The biggest thing at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view was the angle that closed the show. The biggest thing at Survivor Series War Games was not the fact that War Games was back. It was the angle that finished the match. The biggest thing going into the Elimination Chamber was not either of the Elimination Chamber matches. It was the Universal Championship match between Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn. And it was what is going to happen as a result of that match. This pay-per-view was by far the most anticipated Elimination Chamber pay-per-view in history. I don't think there has ever been a pay-per-view in between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania that has had this kind of energy going in. I think even the most optimistic Sami Zayn fans did not realize how successful Sami and Roman would be and Jey Uso would be telling this story. But all stories have an ending. And we knew that Roman Reigns was going to retain the Universal Championship. And we knew that he had to retain it concretely because he's going to WrestleMania to fight Cody Rhodes. He was always going to WrestleMania to fight Cody Rhodes. And generally speaking, that's not something that upsets fans. Generally speaking, the fans that I speak to, they want to see Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. I want to see Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. But for a second, something that wasn't supposed to happen was happening. And Sami Zayn still gave the performance of a lifetime. Sami Zayn was legendary at the Elimination Chamber. And wrestling ultimately isn't about wins and losses anyway. But on some nights, you just wonder what if, you know? And maybe it's because of the way it was done. Look, some people said, well, maybe Sami can win by DQ. Well, maybe, you know, Roman can win in a way when he really shouldn't have won. But ultimately, that's not what happened. Roman didn't pin Sami Zayn because of Jimmy's interference. Roman didn't lose the match by DQ, but technically he retains the title so he can go to WrestleMania. Roman won in a way where, yes, there was chicanery, and yes, Jey and Jimmy Uso were involved. But I don't think anybody looking at that match goes, oh, yeah, but Sami should get another shot. I think he'd win next time. He wouldn't win next time. We know that. He came close, but many people have come close. If they don't win, they don't win. Sami didn't win. And this match was really, really well done. You know, I thought that Sami Zayn's wife was a tremendous MVP of this entire situation. The reactions that Sami Zayn's wife had to what was a story that was being told were reminiscent of the reactions that Mick Foley's wife had that were captured by documentary filmmakers for Beyond the Mat at the 1999 Royal Rumble in his match with The Rock. The difference is that Colette Foley's reactions were very, very real to something that was happening that she didn't know was going to happen, because even Mick Foley didn't know was going to happen. It was The Rock in a very, very real way hitting Mick Foley in the head with a very real steel chair. And Colette Foley reacting to seeing her husband beaten senselessly in a real scenario. In a performance scenario, but really in a performance scenario, if that makes any sense at all. Sami Zayn's wife being reminiscent of that shows you how successful she was, because you can usually tell when somebody who's not a performer is simply performing, because it's what their role in this story is. Roman yelling to her, "I wanted to provide for you. I wanted to provide for your child." He stopped this. Her yelling back, "He loved you." It was the height of human drama. Triple H at the press conference said that when wrestling is done right, there is no better form of entertainment. I have said that before myself, and many have said that before. And if you need an example, there's no better place to go than tonight. The Roman Sami match tonight. If you weren't entertained by that, if you couldn't get into that story, then I don't know what to tell you. You're not going to be entertained by anything at all, ever. So then Jimmy Uso comes out, right? The referee goes down. Two referee bumps. First referee bump happens. Jimmy Uso comes out and just lays it down on Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn gets laid out, splash off the top rope, the whole deal. The near falls in this match, by the way, on both parties were incredible. And the facial expressions, again, on Roman Reigns. There's nobody in the business with better facial expressions than Roman Reigns, whether it's utter dismay that he hasn't won the match yet, whether it's a look of pure appall at the audience for booing him, whether it's the starting the match and just looking through, not even looking through Sami Zayn, because Sami Zayn talked about at the press conference that they spent about 5 minutes of that match without even touching each other, just allowing the audience to do their thing. But if you look at that 5 minutes, Roman didn't even look at Sami Zayn. Roman looked through him. Roman looked at Paul. Roman might have looked at Sami's wife, but Roman, for the first several minutes, wasn't even looking in Sami Zayn's eyes. It's insane. So Jimmy Uso, whatever, lays out Sami Zayn. And when we see Jimmy Uso, this is a great call, because when we see Jimmy Uso, we know Jey's there, right? Whether it's storyline-wise, because Roman had sent the Usos home for SmackDown and they weren't on SmackDown, or whether, we're all so smart and have read the internet and know everything that's going on, and we know that legally Jimmy Uso can't be there. So, yeah, and we don't think Jey Uso can be there either. Well, legally Jimmy Uso can be there because there's Jimmy Uso on my television set. So that lets you know that whether you're going by, your genius reporting on the internet, or whether you're going by storyline, the Usos are there. If Jimmy's there, you know Jey's there. But the way Jey got in the ring, when the second referee went down, second referee bump happens, and that second referee bump, that referee ate it. Boy, did he take it. But when the second referee bump happens, and Roman gets the steel chair from Paul Heyman, and he goes to swing it, and that's when Jey Uso, main event Jey, enters the ring. But he enters, he doesn't run down the aisle. He doesn't dash in and make a spectacle of himself. He gets in the ring slowly and just walks in front of Sami. And he's got his posture. And this is a posture that he had similarly to when Roman was first inflicting his mental trauma onto Jey. And it's an insecure and uncomfortable posture where his shoulders are up and slumped. It's amazing, the body language that we see from Jey. And he's standing in front of Sami, and he's blocking Roman. And Roman tells him straight up, it's either him or me. You can't stop me and still be with me. You have to pick one of us. And he shoves the chair into Jey's chest, forcing him to hold it. He puts his back to Jey in the same way that he put his back to Sami Zayn, in the same way that he had his back to Seth Rollins, almost allowing Jey to make his choice. Now, in the moment, he's not telling Jey to do it. He's getting in Sami Zayn's face. But somewhere psychologically, either Roman's an idiot and doesn't understand that when he turns around, people like to hit him with chairs, or this is part of his mental game. He was putting Jey in this position where I'm giving you my back. You can turn on me. I dare you to turn on me. That is the position I choose to hold Roman in. And Jey doesn't do it. And Roman, in calling him a coward, is shoving Jey's face. He's shoving Jey's face. And when it looks like Jey is about to turn around and get Roman, Sami goes for Roman. Roman moves. He spears Jey right out of the ring. And once all that goes down, Roman is able to get a decisive pinfall victory over Sami Zayn. Now there's 2 referee bumps, interference from Jimmy, and a distraction from Jey. But ultimately, Roman's physicality is what put Sami Zayn down. And this is going back to talking about the inevitable. There was never any other option. Roman is going to WrestleMania to face Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is supposed to be the best challenger that Roman has ever had. Cody Rhodes should be the top babyface in the land, the one person that can defeat Roman Reigns. If you're going to go to WrestleMania with Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, you can't in the back of your mind think, also Sami Zayn can beat Roman Reigns. You can't. You can't in the back of your mind think, 6 weeks ago we found out that Roman Reigns, Sami Zayn could beat him. He didn't get, but he could have beat him. You can't think that way. And if you're watching the match, you're not. And it makes sense on that level. It's going to make the Roman-Cody match make sense, because otherwise that match wouldn't have made sense. But what we're left with is dismay. What we're left with is a sad ending for tonight, for the Elimination Chamber night. Because Sami wasn't the hero we thought he was. Because Sami almost got there. And that hurts. That hurts to be somebody who almost gets there, and it hurts to be on that journey with them. It wasn't just Montreal. It was everybody watching. The good guy was cheered, and the bad guy was booed. And that's rare in 2023 wrestling. And the bad guy won. And at its base level, it's a bummer. Now, going forward, you had Kevin Owens come out at the end of the match. We didn't see Jey again. Jimmy is in the ring, and they're getting ready to beat down Sami Zayn, and Kevin Owens comes out to make the save. Now, some were wondering why Kevin Owens didn't come out earlier. Well, number one, if Kevin Owens had come out earlier, from a storytelling perspective, it would have completely stripped away all of the drama that we saw with Jey Uso. If Kevin Owens had come out earlier, then Jey wouldn't have ever had to make this decision and ultimately not made it, which is clearly the dramatic direction that we're going in. So on that level, just you're not telling the same story if Kevin Owens comes out. On a make it make sense to me character basis, the reason Sami didn't come out, the reason Kevin Owens didn't come out is the same reason why Sami didn't stop Roman from beating Kevin Owens. First of all, Sami turned on him at War Games. Second of all, Sami didn't save Kevin Owens until the beatdown after the match. So Kevin Owens isn't saving Sami until the beatdown after the match. This isn't about Kevin Owens getting the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. He knows Cody Rhodes has this match at WrestleMania. It's done. He won the Royal Rumble. So the only reason he's coming out is to make sure that his friend doesn't get hurt. The same way that his friend made sure that he didn't get hurt. It's not to affect the outcome of the match whatsoever. So Kevin Owens comes out, beats up Jimmy Uso, beats up Paul Heyman, beats up Roman Reigns. Then he leaves, and Sami Zayn has that moment in the ring where he does get his just due. He does get this acknowledgement that you pulled this off. And don't get me wrong, Sami Zayn is in a 1,000% better place today than he was before he faced Roman Reigns. And it was an incredible finish to an incredible story. But that's what it felt like, a finish to a story. And I don't know how many of us were ready to let this story go. It felt like we were watching the finale. And there is a post log. The post log will be what happens at WrestleMania. I don't think Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are going to be involved with Roman Reigns whatsoever going into WrestleMania. I think that the story that we'll tell going forward is what side Jimmy and Jey Uso are on. It will be the reformation of the Usos. And it will lead us to what we always kind of knew was going to happen, which is Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos. Is that the main event of night one? And today, as we talk, does it feel like it's going to be where it should be? Maybe by the time we get to WrestleMania. I can't tell you now. I can tell you how I feel right now. How I feel right now is I wish Sami Zayn was in the main event of WrestleMania. It's just how I feel. I said a couple of weeks ago that the way to go with this thing is to make the Usos versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn as big as one can so that it becomes the main event of night one of WrestleMania. And I think that that's still possible. But it's just the post log to the story. I think that that's the story. And I don't know how many of us are ready for this story to be over. On Christmas, you wake up full of anticipation. And you go downstairs and you get everything you wanted. Everything. And it's perfect. It's wrapped perfectly. Everything works perfectly. You open the presents in the right order. It's like poetry. It's beautiful. And you play with all your toys and you try on all your clothes and it's all there. And Christmas was everything you wanted it to be. But on December 25th, when you go to bed, you realize it's over. And the best of us can simply look back and go, man, I'm glad that happened. But for most of us, and by the time you get to the 27th or the 28th of December, that's what you're thinking. I had a good Christmas this year. But for most of us, on the night of the 25th, we're like, oh, man, it's over. We did it. It was perfect. But now it's done. And it's back to reality. And the reality is that Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns is the main event of WrestleMania. Your reality before Christmas wasn't bad. You lived a good life from December 26th of last year to December 24th of this year. It's just Christmas was perfect. Every day is not Christmas, though. And that's a reality that sets in when you go to bed on Christmas night. And maybe that's where we're at today. I don't know. Maybe by the time we get to WrestleMania, the Usos versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn will be enough. But as we speak today, it feels like it's going to be a curtain call to what was one of the greatest stories that the WWE has ever told.